Hello, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Cure. I have a special guest, Reverend Christine Coleman. She's originally from Rwanda. Currently, she resides in Denver with her family. She is a devout Christian and a devout person of the faith. She works with Blazing Holy Fire Church in Denver, and they come to you week by week. You can also catch her on YouTube when they post their sermons. She is the author of a book, SOS Rwanda's 30-Year Collapse, where she describes events from the past and from the present that is going to affect the future of her home country. Reverend Coleman, thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And I send my greetings to everyone who is listening. May God bless you. May God bless USA.
Thank you very much. I wanted to get your take because we're it's funny because yesterday I'm watching CNN and there was an expert up there, very well respected guy. He was a law professor, Brian Stevenson, and he spoke about reforms and how the police departments around the country need reform. And he referred to the Obama policy. Now, I don't agree with all of the Obama policy, but I've read through that white paper and there were some things in there. And he named other countries that had meaningful reform in terms of the police. And he brought up Rwanda. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that because, you and I have talked offline, and which is what led to this interview. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I, from the outside looking in, and from what you tell me, I don't think that there's been meaningful reforms in terms of law enforcement within the Rwandan borders.
Yes, you are right, and I agree with you. The reform that you hear in Rwanda, it's just advertisement. It's something that you hear and you see it's real, but it's not real because the police in Rwanda are very well involved in all sorts of brutality.
Mm-hmm.
There are many thousands of people who have died in police custody. And so my advice is that this expert, whoever he is, probably he should get a copy of my book, and he could be very informed and then tell what is the truth, not the lies that they hear from the government of Rwanda. Thank you.
He mentioned Germany too, and I'm not so sure about that one either. That was another reference. The thing is, yeah, when it comes to policing, see, this is what happened here, Reverend Coleman. I'm gonna tell you this. In the '90s, I was barely a teenager in the '90s, but there was this incident in Los Angeles, and the reason why I'm gonna give you the background on why the police have been so militarized. So there was this incident in the '90s, and I think these guys robbed a bank. And so these guys robbed this bank. The police got there kind of right on time and pinned these guys in a corner. The problem is these gentlemen, they had fully automatic weapons at the time. And so they basically outgunned the police. It was a long standoff before they were able to apprehend these guys. And so that's why when you see the police department having like tanks and armored vehicles and so forth, it was basically because of that incident. They, police departments around the country decided that, okay, we're not going to have, this can't be a widespread thing, and we're not going to let this happen again. That's why you ever see any incidents, there's never any long standoffs anymore. There used to be, when I was a kid, I remember long standoffs. even if the assailants or the suspects didn't have that type of firepower, but not so anymore, because the police they're getting federal training guides. They're more heavily armed. Police have a great deal of more protective and preventative equipment than they have today. Surveillance technologies. I mean, it's the police has, they have the leg up now, for the most part. So that's why you see these police officers and they have these, these barricade lines and these shields, and that that was kind of the driver. And so, he mentioned Germany, and it's the same way. Most European countries have kind of a militarized police, because these are, when violence and what have you escalates up to that point, they do any and everything to quell it. So I just thought it was interesting. I thought I'd bring it up.
Mhm.
Basically, this whole situation with George Floyd. What's your take on that? Before we get to your book, I know you're anxious to get to your book, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, I have been praying for what's going on in the USA right now. I do believe there is a force behind what's going on. My belief after praying and discerning and watching is that this is, to me, this is not a black and white issue. This is more than that. This is some people who are trying to bypass law and order. This is something probably more political and more demonic than what we think. I do believe, and I'm so thankful for the law enforcement. That they are here. They protect us. We go to sleep. They are watching over our streets, over
Mm-hmm.
us. I have so much respect for the law enforcement as to why they might use weapons. It's because they need to restore law and order. And as you said, sometimes you don't know when they get called, when they receive a 911 calls, they don't know what's on the other side. And so having weapons is very important, but not to be used for brutality. So they have to restore law and order. But I think what's going on right now with the rioting, we can see the fruit that is coming forth. It's now good. Protesting is good, but when protesting has a violence, then it's more than what it should be. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, and from what I've seen from the videos, there are actually legitimate protesters that are there peacefully. And then there's another group that are just there to do harm, to cause violence and to cause strife. And, my thanks to the protesters that are there. I can understand protesting because, that's what this country is built on: free speech and freedom of speech. And, it's a right in this country, and it's a protected right. So I definitely applaud those who are there protesting peacefully, and extra thanks for those that are getting in front of these rioters and trying to stop them from causing any damage or any
Right.
harm to the businesses there. So now, Reverend Coleman, I love your book.
Oh,
I've
thank
learned
you.
I've learned so much that I wouldn't have otherwise known, because it's always better to hear a first person testimony of what's going on there in the wrong, because the media, they just kind of whitewash the things that are happening there, and they gloss over it, especially the Western media. And particularly, I want to blame CNN International, because they have access. That's really our go-to um, for international news, and they have access. They have access, and they have insider information, so forth. But now I know, according to our conversations and from what I've read just by doing my own research, the Rwandan government has been really cracking down on the flow of information. I wanted to get your take on the current regime, and I know we talked about this before, you and I, but the the audience that I serve, they may not know. I wanted to
Right.
get your take on the current regime and what's kind of taking place right now that we should have an eye on.
Yes, yes. As we talk, even before I came into the studio, there are people all over sending me email from the country, just crying, saying they are killing us. They are killing Hutus. And
Mhm.
when these things happen, they happen without the international community knowing,
Mhm.
because the first thing that President Kagame did was to kill independent journalism. So independent reporters have been either jailed, exiled, and many, many of them are killed. Even right now, as we talk, there is a one of the few remaining independent journalists who, because maybe he might not be accepted, he decided to have a YouTube channel, and
Mhm.
many thousands of people were watching. Just about a month ago or so, they just put him in a jail. And so many things are happening, and nobody knows about it. So you ask me, what is your take on the regime? Think about the dictatorship that is beyond probably what we have heard
Mhm.
so far. Think about North Korea.
Mhm.
Think about China, maybe even a government that is beyond China, because they have their people trained in China. I was speaking to one of the journalists, actually, who has been in Rwanda, and he has made a movie, and he said, compared to Hitler, and Kagame,
Mhm.
Hitler is a novice. So when I hear you talking about Germany, I'm thinking about the Holocaust.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
the same thing that has happened to Rwanda, and it is still happening. However, unlike what happened in Germany, the international community came together. They stood together as one, and they said no to this. But so far in Rwanda, it's happening, and nobody is talking
Mhm.
about it. But two things I want to inject in here. Number one, last week, it was in the news, at least the Rwanda news, that US and the UK, they have teamed together, and they had a review of the naming of genocide, where UN and of course the government of Rwanda, they had changed the text about the Rwanda genocide, and instead of being called the Rwandan genocide,
Mhm.
Kagame lobbied so much that UN passed a resolution which named it genocide against Tutsis. And by naming it that way, uh, it would make Kagame look like innocent. The genocide was
Mhm.
committed by only Hutu. These are the evil, wicked people. But me and all the Tutsi, we are innocent. We never shed any blood. And that's not true, because that
Mhm.
blood has been shared for a long time, and it is still being shared today. So the government you have today, it's a government that kills its own people, but hide it to international community. It's a wicked government, and I exposed that in my book. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to say, I hope it's okay that I might have a different view about CNN. I am not a big fan of CNN. And I hear you, there's a professor who is an expert talking about Rwanda. Definitely, I don't agree with him. But in the past, I would have to say that when reporting on a political prisoner in Rwanda,
Mm-hmm.
CNN has done a great job. They spoke up for Diana Rwigara
Mm-hmm.
more than Fox News. I love Fox News. I watch Fox News, but they have
Mm-hmm.
done a great job exposing the dictatorship of Kagame more than the conservative media. And I
Mm-hmm.
do think the conservative media should be the one speaking up because they stand for those values, but for some reason, they have covered up Kagame's crimes.
Well, that's definitely true. Definitely, Fox being for example, being a part of News Corp, they do have an international arm. For some reason, the information doesn't flow as much. I will say CNN does have more of
Mm-hmm.
a global presence in terms of news
Oh,
coverage.
okay.
I would say in terms of genocides and things that happen like this, the Blaze were probably under conservative media will probably be the best source because I remember, subscribing to the Blaze a while ago and during those wars in the Middle East, Christians were being slaughtered.
Right.
And nobody was saying nothing except for the Blaze. See, and even CNN missed that one. I mean, Christians were literally Syria, Iraq. I mean, they were being slaughtered, and no one was saying anything except for Glenn Beck's network, the
Oh, okay.
Blaze.
So the Blaze is the one with Glenn Beck, right?
Yes. Oh my
So
God, he
yeah, I,
covers
I
it.
agree. He does cover a lot, and actually, I should get in touch with him. But it's not easy to get through. You just keep sending email, hoping that somebody somewhere will read. But I had not been successful getting my story through.
Well, you know what? Reverend Coleman, our mutual friend knows Glenn Beck, so you may want to pull on her coattails a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. Please,
That's just
yeah.
so. So
Very good, very good. Thank you.
I just wanted to throw that out there. So Kagame, he was born to a Tutsi family, and so the Tutsis are controlling the government. Is that the way you've explained it to me, and the way that
Yes,
I've read it?
yes. So if we can just lay foundation a little bit, in Rwanda there are three tribes: Hutus, who are 85% of the population. It's the big majority. Now you have the Tutsi. At the time, I believe they were about 14%, and you have a Twa, who are a very small group of people, 1%. Now, back in the days of monarchy, the Tutsi were the ones who, the line of the king issued from the Tutsi.
Hmm.
However, during the Rwanda Revolution, things changed and the power was given to the Hutus, and democracy kicked in, and the presidents began to come from the Hutus, who are the majority.
Hmm.
So by the time when the genocide happened, the president that we have was a Hutu. I would have to say that under his regime, we never seen killings. Under
Hmm.
his regime, we never seen people being incarcerated, people being kidnapped or tortured. I told you, if you go to the State Department and look at the report before 1990, you will find the Rwanda that has zero history of killing. But when Kagame comes, he waged war in 1990 against Rwanda. So Kagame actually took power by military force. And
Mm-hmm.
when this happened, when the genocide happened, there was a peace deal that was reached because after fighting with the Rwanda Hutu government for 4 years almost, the Rwanda Hutu president decided to sit at the table. They negotiated and they reached a deal where Kagame's Tutsi government will be included, and this never it started happening, but the process was aborted because Kagame shut down the plan of the president of Rwanda, and this is what sparkled the genocide. But before the shutting down of this government, Kagame, a Tutsi,
Mm-hmm.
and his army, they had been engaged in 3 years of killing left and right in Rwanda because they came with guns, they came with weapons. All
Mm.
he cared for was about power, not to just bring in the Tutsi who have been in exile. And you're right. So he's a Tutsi. And right now, even though the Hutu are the majority, they have zero voice inside Rwanda. Right now, the Hutu are seen as objects that needed to be oppressed, killed, and
Mm-hmm.
destroyed.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. And I know I'm gonna bring this up. It's a sore hot spot, but a lot of countries, I know particularly in Africa, and I know Rwanda is one of them, they receive aid. They receive aid from
Exactly.
Western countries. And a lot of this aid, I read a lot, and one of my favorite economists is Dr. Dambizo Moyo, and she has this book. I knew it before then, but she goes into a lot of detail, and she has like a half a chapter on Rwanda, and she talks about Kagame and the aid, and how he makes excuses on why the country isn't more developed when we're giving them this aid.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the aid is going to sustain the current regime that's in place that's oppressing the people.
Yeah, so Rwanda received a lot of money during the time of Obama, especially. They increased to over 100 millions. They
Hmm.
give it to the Rwanda. This is not something they will give it to Burundi. That's not even near to what they give it to other countries. So Rwanda is a top receiver of foreign aid coming from USA, especially during the time of the Clinton. There was a big corruption to where the government of Obama will give millions. I think one of the time they gave over 120 million to Kagame. And then
Hmm.
what Kagame did, he became a donor to Bill Clinton. You get that corruption right there? He
Oh my
became
God.
a donor. And where does this money go? Because right now, when you talk to the people in Rwanda, they are very hungry that they are begging you to give them even 5 pounds of beans. When I send $200 to someone in Rwanda, after 2 weeks, it's gone. After 2 weeks, completely gone. But if
Wow.
I send $200 to a pastor in Uganda, that money is going to last the pastor in Uganda for 2 months. You see
Wow.
the difference? Now, where all this money going? Now, the money is being used to kill people. The money is being used because Kagame has a network of his assassins and the people, his intelligence. They are all over, even in the USA. The money is going to do things like that. And instead of the money developing the country. Now, when the West look at Rwanda, they say, oh, well, it's developed, but it's because when they go to Rwanda, there is a specific area they are not allowed to go to. Kagame has his own people, the interpreters, even
Hmm.
chosen by the government, so that they take you where they want to deceive you. They take you to the five-star restaurant. They take you to this place that they have built. I call them the whitewashed tombs. You look outside. it is shiny. They make it shiny for the West. But if you were to dig a little bit, beyond the whitewash, the tomb, you will see that there are bones and the rotten things inside. You want to know the real Rwanda? Go to Rwanda. Don't take the government guides and interpreter. Employ your own and go in the countryside, go in the remote area, go to the prison, because even right now, if you go to the prison in Rwanda, they won't let you talk to the prisoner face to face alone. They have always to have the government person present. What are they worried about? What are they hiding? And so, coming back to the aid, when Trump got in power, there has been a little bit of progress where he has reduced the aid, but I do believe they really need to review the policy. They need to match the aid to the United States, the Department report on Rwanda, because if you look our report right now on Rwanda, we are competing with North Korea. We are competing with China as far as human rights are concerned. Rwanda has the worst human rights reports that you can see on the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
So my request is that the aid that the West gave to those government, it should match the human rights reports. Otherwise, when you give to somebody, oh, they are developing, they have the healthcare system that is working, but we need to put lives above everything else. There are many things that are happening, good things to the eyes of the West, but they need to know that these things are happening to the expense of lives. There is blood that is being sacrificed every single day.
Wow. Wow. I saw where in your book, particularly I believe it's in chapter 2, when you spoke of the Christian persecution, and there was a Rwandan gospel singer, Kizito Mihigo,
Right.
and they found him dead. And you highlighted that if you don't do what Kadami says, you will be a dead man. He released a song titled The Meaning of Death, and it was a message of reconciliation and unity, according to the text. Could you speak on that a little bit more?
Yes, the story of Kizito Mihigo is a very sad story because this was a holy man. This, if there is anybody to give a Nobel Peace Prize, this would be the man. He is a man who, during the genocide, he was a young man and he's a Tutsi, where during the genocide, his father was killed by Hutus. And
Mm-hmm.
after the genocide, thank God he survived. And he come with anger. And he comes back with the plan to revenge. But he had an encounter with God. After this encounter, God teaches him love and true forgiveness. Besides that, he became one of the most talented gospel singer, not
Mm-hmm.
only in Rwanda, but in Africa. At the age of 19, he had composed over 200 songs.
Wow.
And Rwanda sent him to study in Europe. So he studied music in France for
Oh,
10
nice.
years. So when he came back, he's like the Mozart of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But with that talent also, he had an encounter with God to where he is among the few young people, being a Tutsi, would date a Hutu. The hatred between the Hutu and the Tutsi during the genocide was such as couple divorce. If they were different tribes, they divorced. But this
Yeah.
young man, after the genocide, he forgives that he's not even afraid to date Hutus.
Wow.
Well, Kagame did not like that. When he composed the song, he made the song basically advocating for everybody, saying, okay, we cannot be tied to the past. We need to look beyond. And especially he said that because right now the government of Rwanda is even going after the children who were born after the genocide because their parents were Hutus. The government of Rwanda is attributing the sins and the hatred to the forefather, and they see Hutu children like murderers. And so he stood up, he fought against that, but he didn't fight with a gun. So he
Mm-hmm.
uses the talent and he composed a song because Kagame did not like the song. He called him to his office and he had his people telling him basically, if you don't do what the president does, you are a dead person. So because of that song, they jailed him and he was in jail for 4 years. But when they
Wow.
jailed him, they tortured him that in front of the TV, he came and he confessed that, yes, I was going to kill the president. But it was all lies because when Kizito was in prison, he wrote a book, but he does not tell anybody. He does it in secret. All the prisoners in Rwanda, if you have been tortured, they tell you if you say anything about your torture, we're going to kill you. We're going to kill you. So many people in the prison in Rwanda, they've been tortured. He was also tortured, and he was told, you never say anything. So in 2018, I believe it was the end, he was released from jail because the international community kept pressing on Kagame, you can't do this. How can you explain that anybody who has ever dared to run against Kagame, they have all ended in jail just within a short time before the election? That's how he does things. And so because of that pressure, Kagame released Kizito. And when Kizito was released, he was
Mm-hmm.
told, you cannot talk about peace and reconciliation. You cannot get a passport. So Kizito saw that
Wow.
they released him from a small jail to a big jail because the whole country is a jail. So what he did, he's a free thinker. He decided to flee the country, and he went. He found the back roads, but what he did not know is that the whole country of Rwanda is tracked. Everybody who has a cell phone, they track you. The cell phone company, instead of working for the citizens, is being used as a tool to spy.
Mm. Mm.
And so he was being tracked. He was arrested near the border. It was big in the news. That was the beginning of this year. So they put Kizito Mihigo, the most loved musician, the most talented, prominent artist of Rwanda. They put him in a jail, and he's a young man, I believe, in his 30s. They put him in a jail, and then after 2 days, they announced that he has committed suicide, but that's not true.
Wow.
Because when they refused his family to prepare his body for burial because the body had the marks of abuse and torture all over. United States raised the issue together with the international community, asking independent, investigation, but the Rwanda hurried to bury him, and when the people reviewed the body, it had marks of torture over the face. Yeah.
Wow. That is absolutely bananas. Excuse my colloquialism.
I hear you. I hear you. This
Wow.
Kizito was killed because he is a Christian. The government of Rwanda is antichrist 100%, but they have a few churches that they present to the community, international community. But basically, these churches, in order to function, they have to be in agreement with the government. They have to
Mm-hmm.
say yes to the government. But other than that, the real church in Rwanda is underground. The church you see outside, functioning and working openly, they have to agree with the government.
Wow. You had a lot of traumatic experiences there too. Um,
Oh, yes, because I lived the genocide. I saw the genocide when the genocide was there. In the book, I talked about my sister. I
yes.
was at her house on April 6th, and the year is 1994. When that day, April 6th, 94, I'm supposed to spend the night. I'm supposed to stay over for a week because I
Mm-hmm.
had come from the university on Easter break, and my plan was to stay over at the house. But, God has a plan for each one of us. Something inside of me pushed me to leave her house on April 6th, 94 in the afternoon.
Mm.
After I left her house that night around 9 p.m., we hear the news that the president of Rwanda was shot by Kagame's army. And because of that, my sister, who lived very close to where Kagame's forces in Rwanda were located, my sister was not allowed to leave her house. They put roadblocks, and the Kagame's people came and they killed many people who lived in the neighborhood by
Oh wow.
the building where the Kagame's army were. And so if I did not leave that place, if I was delayed 6 hours at my sister's house, I was going to die as well. And so I survived that tragedy so that I may tell the world what's going on. And then after the April 6th event, it was 3 months of killings,
Wow.
massacres. And the killings, I'm sorry, they were being done by Kagame equally, and they were being done by also the Hutus, because the Hutu got angry. And of course, I'm not excusing any killings. No killing should be justified, no killing whatsoever. But I want to throw it out there to the people who have been told the Hutus are the only one who kills. No, Kagame was killing equally in the areas that he controlled,
Mm.
to the point where over 800,000 people were killed in Rwanda within 3 months. Now, Rwanda is a very small country,
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very small, and 800,000 people being killed within uh,
That's a lot
three
of people.
months. It's a lot of people. So there is no family that we know of that did not lose people during that tragedy. Bodies were everywhere. The country smelled so bad, and the dogs and the beasts in the forest, they got fed from feeding on the bodies of people.
In your book, you described that night, April 6, 1994, as the night two presidents were assassinated. I'm just
Yes,
I'm just bringing that reference in.
yeah, it's very important to know that the president of Rwanda, I'm not saying he's a holy man, but the way I knew him, he was not a person who had the killing in him.
Mm-hmm.
That was not him. He had gone to a meeting in Tanzania, and in that meeting he went together with the president of Burundi. Now
Mm.
Burundi had conflict for many years between Hutu and Tutsi because they also have the same tribes. But for the first time in Burundi, they have, I think for the second time, they have a new elected Hutu president in a democratic way. And it is the president of Burundi went, he's a new president. He went with the president of Rwanda, and they went to Tanzania to meet with Kagame. On the
Mm-hmm.
way back, they did not know it was a trap, it was a setup.
Oh
When the
wow.
president of Rwanda was landing, his plane was shot down. Now, there has been many cases in the courts, and I think the wife of the president of Rwanda has won the case. But many experts has said, if we want to resolve the problem of Rwanda, we need to go to the source. And I agree, because the source is whoever killed the presidents of Rwanda and Burundi. He's the one who should be sued. He is the person that the international community need to talk to, because this very one is the one who sparkled the massacre and the genocide that followed in Rwanda and in the Congo to this day.
Mm-hmm. How did you get out, Reverend Coleman?
And so from my sister, I left the April 6th. I go to the countryside, and the reason why I was leaving, it's because that's where my siblings were, and I missed them, and that's where my grandparents lived. I decided to go there. When I go there, it's 50 miles away from the Kigali city, and there are roadblocks. You can go back to Kigali, and the war became so bad between Kagame, because after Kagame shot down the president's plane, he positioned his army to take over the country.
Mm.
However, they had reached a peace deal where they shared the power in the Rwanda Congress, in the government. And so he violates all of that peace deal. And so the fight between the Hutu army and the Kagame's Tutsi army became really bad. The
Mm-hmm.
international community supported Kagame, because number one, he was their product, and they believed everything, every lies he was telling them. But right now, they are beginning to find out. Right now, they see that he's a dictator. And so in the countryside, life became really tough because the roads are closed. And I decided, okay, now the only way we're going to survive, we are in the countryside. Let's begin to plant potatoes. Let's begin to work in the field. That way we get food. And we began to do this, but day by day, the war is getting bad. The whole country is full of refugee, rioting, and killings.
Mm-hmm.
And I survived, number one, by the grace of God, but also my family, we were a mix of, there are Hutu, there are Tutsi, and, it's, I would say it's the grace of God, really. And we had to run away to leave our homes because Kagame's army was approaching, and we knew them from the very beginning. They did not respect human rights. They always killed uh, everybody, and they employ children as soldiers. So we ran away, and I found myself in the Congo by myself, because in fleeing the country, you're
Mm.
talking about over, millions of people running. We lost members of the family, and I lost my siblings, and I found myself in the Congo. I would say it's the grace of God,
Wow.
because even more people were being killed by sickness, by disease, by lack of food and water.
Wow. 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 Ended up in the Congo. That had to have been
Yes.
something. Wow. When did you come to the U.S., Reverend Coleman?
So when I got in the Congo, I was able to be employed by all these non-profit organizations that were putting in to help refugees.
Mm-hmm.
I made my, a couple that would later on become my American parents.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with them in the Congo, and they really liked me. Kagame was doing a propaganda saying all the people who run in the Congo, they are evil, they are Hutu who
Mm-hmm.
have caused the genocide. But that was not true. They were the most beautiful people that you would find. Even the international community, when they came, they were shocked to see that the warning they were given doesn't match with who we are. So they liked me. They tried to bring me to US, but it did not work for a while, for almost 2 years, trying to come, it did not work. Then Kagame attacked the refugees in the Congo
Yep, I
and
read about
killed,
that.
yeah, and killed so many millions of people died as a result. I was forced back to Rwanda, and when I get back to Rwanda, that's when I really become a strong Christian. That's when my faith grew because I was in a place where I know the government is killing people. Basically, from a genocide, Rwanda moved into democide. That's when the government is now killing people. And through that, my faith in God grew. And God spoke to me and he said, don't worry, I will bring you over. I will bring you to United States. So I left Rwanda in 1997 and I
Mm-hmm.
came basically to go to school. I went to school, finished, graduated, worked, ran a business, and right now I have left everything to serve God.
Wow, wow. Man,
Yes.
what an amazing story. And you summed up your book really well.
Oh, really? Thank
you
you.
you did it's an excellent book, and I'm gonna recommend this to my listeners on my site, and I'll have this episode up right away, and I'll send it to you as well. Man, thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, this
Thank you so very much. Every voice we get out there, it's a victory because millions of people inside the Rwanda, they are begging us to speak up because they have no voice. So I thank you for this opportunity. And please pray that more doors open so that not only me, but other Rwandans who know what's going on, they have a voice to speak up. And I do believe together with international community, we can put an end to this manslaughter, to this genocide that is going on inside the Rwanda state.
we need to get this book in the hands of the State Department. Someone that's there. They really need to read this thing and look at some of the insight, some of the first person insight that you have, because there's a lot here to unpack.
Yes, that you are right. You are right. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll have to have you back again. And I'm gonna look at this.
Anytime.
I'm gonna look at your service that you sent me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.